Okay, it's time to commit. 2024 is the year for prioritizing yourself. Begin your new smile journey with Byte, and you could start seeing results in just 2 to 3 weeks. Just order your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95 at Byte.com. Byte clear liners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer financing options, accept eligible insurance, and you could pay with your HSA, FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
When you want to have fun and have scratchers to scratch, there's a playful way you can do just that. Scratch with the key or acrylic nail. Scratch with the quill from a porcupine tail. Use a belt buckle from your friend Lamar. Or scratch with your pick while you play guitar. You can scratch in a bunch of different playful ways. Scratchers from the California Lottery. A little play can make your day. Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase, play, or claim.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
New activation and upfront payment for 3-month plan required. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com for full terms.
Introducing Carvana Value Tracker, where you can track your car's value over time and learn what's driving it. It might make you excited.
Whoa, didn't know my car was valued this high.
It might make you nervous.
Uh-oh, market's flooded. My car's value just dipped 2.3%.
It might make you optimistic.
Our low mileage is paying off. Our value's up.
And it might make you realistic.
Car prices haven't gone up in a couple weeks. Maybe it's time to sell.
But it will definitely make you an expert on your car's value. Carvana Value Tracker. Visit Carvana.com to start tracking your car's value today.
Somebody please think of the children!
And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into the things that we've been, I believe, just watching, maybe reading this week. I'm Terry.
Watching and reading, yeah. I'm Mary Beth, and this week we're talking haunted houses, a ghostly chamber piece, Becky with the okay hair, the continuing adventures of the famous Jason, and a roller coaster of love and disaster.
Bum, bum, bum. Also, if you are a Fresh Wound subscriber on our Patreon, your new episode on Fat Girl is out, and boy, was that a deep dive into French feminism, into so much grooming, consent, just a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah. Dax and I, when I was on West Once Never Again, we did a whole series on Briat, and we were just like, I can't anymore with these movies.
All right, I think I know what this one is, but let's talk about haunted houses.
Okay, so I have not been watching a lot this week because I've just been playing Dredge instead of doing anything else with my time. But I did start reading a book that I have been meaning to read forever, and I actually got a copy of it when we were in San Francisco for oof. But this is Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt, which is... I mean, people have been singing this book's praises for a long time on Twitter, and it is basically a new take on the haunted house haunted house narrative, where 3 years ago, this group of women go to a haunted house and really bad shit happens, and one of them disappears, and the other two never speak to each other again. And the first half of the book is them like kind of struggling to live through their lives after going through this traumatic experience. But we're getting the perspective of these two women. There's Alice, who is a trans woman, and then Isla, who is a cis woman, a cis lesbian, and then we also get the perspective of the haunted house. And the book ends up being not just about hauntings, but about like contemporary British society, transphobia, the spread of fascism, the insidiousness of fascism and transphobia. Like, it's really good, and it's really gay. So Allison Rumfitt is a trans woman, so it is like very queer, very much fucked up characters who are like pretty bad but compelling. And it's I started reading it last night, and I got about halfway through it.
Wow.
I really, really love the way it's really interesting. Like, it goes from like Alice's perspective to Isla's perspective to the house's perspective, and the way that each section is written is really really different and interesting. There's a lot of like stream of consciousness writing going on here, and kind of like it feels like you're following like a line of intrusive thoughts. It's really fascinating and a different way of thinking about hauntings, and I really love it. I haven't finished it yet, and I know that sorry guys.
Gesundheit.
Apparently the end is like even scarier.
I was gonna ask, is it spooky?
So it's spooky for sure, but it's not. It's like in the background almost. It's like more focusing on like the psychological state of the characters, but it's compelling because of the characters and how they themselves perceive the haunting, and that is really interesting. And like when you get the house's perspective, it's really it's creepy that we get the house's perspective.
I love that. I love that idea because I don't think I've really seen that before.
Yeah. It's very much, it's got a name. The house has a name, and it has like a POV, and it like speaks to the two women like in their head. It's really cool. It's just like very different, and I highly recommend it. It's people have been singing its praises for a bit, and I am joining in that cheering because it's really weird and really well written. My favorite is going on Goodreads and seeing people rating it like didn't finish it, too political, and I'm like, fuck you. But so it's like, it's very funny to see the people who get it and the people who are like, this is just like too woke for me. And it's like, all right, cool.
You're just giving me an aneurysm right now.
I know. I know.
My eyes like,
I know.
Talk about being triggered. Like, that's what always kills me is that they're always like, snowflakes triggering, yada, yada, yada. But then they have conniption fits over drag time and anything that is woke. Like, it's like triggered much. Whatever. Anyway, I am really excited. I want to read that one. It's definitely on my to be read pile. They are the biggest bitches. You're right, Tony.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I'm reading through it really quickly. It's just like incredibly compelling. The characters are like gross but fascinating, and yeah, I'm glad to be reading. I was like, I need to read a book. I need to read a fucking book. So I'm glad this is the book that I picked up to finally get my ass back into reading. I say this every 6 months. I'm like, I'm getting back into reading. And I'm like, well, I'm trying. I'm reading a little bit at least.
I'm not going to talk about it tonight, but I have started listening to My Dearest Darkest, which I think you talked about on the podcast before.
I did. Yes. My sapphic cosmic horror.
I'm loving it so far. I'm about like a third of the way through, and I'm really enjoying that. So I'm hoping to talk about that maybe eventually.
I have her newest one that I need to read too.
Well, see, that's why I went to go out there to get hopefully the audiobook of the new one, her new book. And it wasn't out yet as an audiobook. And so I was like, well, I'm going to listen to this one.
Yeah. This Delicious Death. Lesbian cannibals at Coachella.
I'm here for
What
that.
more could you want?
What more could you want?
But I want to hear about this continuing adventure of the famous adjacent.
Okay, so I can't remember. I think I might have talked about this show before on the podcast. The other two, does this ring a bell at all? I can't remember if I've talked about it or not. It's a comedy show. It like the first season. We're on season 3. Season 3 just started, and the very first season is about this Justin Bieber-esque kid that is like whisked off. You have talked
about this before, I think. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Tony! My favorite himbo too, Josh Segarra, is in it, and he is hell yeah! I love him so much. He is lovable.
Is that the hottie from Scream?
Yes, I love him so much. I love him. But like, so the first season is about this kid whose name's Chase, and he's given the moniker of Chase Dreams, and he is like a little 13-year-old kid who was discovered and has like
Oh,
rocketed to
yes.
fame.
Got it.
And so then we follow his much older brother and sister who are in their like, I think either late 20s or early 30s when the show starts. I think it's late 20s. Brooke and Carrie, and we follow them, and they are not famous whatsoever. They are struggling while their younger brother has like rocketed up. And the first season's about that. The second season, Carrie is hot though, absolutely, Tony. The second season continues that, and then the second season ends. I'm gonna spoil this end of the second season. Sorry, it's not that big of a deal, but like, it ends with Carrie getting a role in a movie, and he's like, my first day of shooting is March 13th, 2020, which is
Oh no.
when COVID
Oh
shut
no.
everything down. So now we're in 2023, and the show is finally back. I think that season actually aired in like 2021, so it has been a minute, and I didn't even know that season 3 was out until I got a notification on my phone saying, "Hey, it's now on HBO Max." I'm like, "What?" And so I quickly reached out to HBO, and I got they've only released the first 7 episodes for critics to review, and I am on episode 5, so I'm not completely caught up with what I need with what's available, but I am ahead of where the show is. And I have to say, this third season is really, really funny. It picks up with like after the movie has been filmed. It's now 3 years later, and there was so many COVID delays, and so it kind of has a little bit of jokes about the idea of, yeah, I would really recommend it, Tony. I think by the time this episode drops, I think the first 3 episodes will be out. And Carrie is like, we kind of go into like the COVID protocols that were there, the fact that like it was a very lonely time, and he was so excited for his movie to be airing in a theater. And in the very first episode, they are at the premiere of watching this movie in a movie theater, and then the movie theater is like close. It's like, we're closing the movie theater, it's being turned into a Starbucks because no one's going to the movie theaters. And so then his movie gets dropped on VOD the next day. And so it's like sort of like seeing that kind of very excitement of like having the creative thing, you're gonna have a movie in a movie theater, and now it's like, oh, now it's just being dropped on a VOD. And I think that's something that a lot of like directors that we've kind of talked to over the last few years is like a common like thing. It's like, you're so excited to get your first movie done and you really want it to be in a movie theater, but then COVID is like decimated all of that. And so it's funny, and it tackles that. It tackles his relationship with kind of fame and parasocial relationships. He gets in this relationship with this other actor, gay guy. He's gay, very queer. The show is very queer, and the actor is like a method actor. It's played by Finn Argus, who is in the new season of Queer as Folk, the new reboot of Queer as Folk, and that they are playing a gay man that is method. And so while they're dating, he is playing Love Nicholas, a third spinoff or second spinoff of Love Victor Simon in the show.
My God.
And he's like, so he's playing an 18-year-old. So he's like, I'm still a virgin. And so they're not taking their relationship any further because he is so method. And there's just like so many funny things like that. Well, the sister is struggling with, does she still want to be in the industry because she has become kind of successful? The mom, played by Molly Shannon, it now owns a TV channel, and we're following her like rise to like fame. And it's really, really fucking hilarious. Dylan O'Brien has a cameo in an episode that drops this week that's really hilarious. It's just like, it's feel good, it's comfort, and it's really fucking funny, and I'm so glad that it's back out. It's on HBO Max, and I really recommend, if you've not seen the show, to give it a try. And the third season seems to be really nailing the same kind of humor that drove the first 2, so I highly recommend it.
Hell yeah.
Really good.
Okay. Sick.
Yeah. I guess we're going back to Ghost. What is this ghostly chamber piece?
So I meant to talk about this a couple times and I haven't, but since it's coming out in less than a month on Shudder, this is Brooklyn 45.
Oh, you did talk about it.
Did I talk about Brooklyn 45?
Out of South by. But we can talk about it because I've actually seen it now too.
That's real awkward. Wow. Obviously, I'm doing great, and I'm definitely getting a lot of sleep, and I'm very well rested, and everything is fine. Never mind.
No, let's talk about it because I've seen it in the intervening time.
Well, for those of you who missed that episode, God, I'm embarrassed for fucking forgetting that. Jesus.
There's nothing to be embarrassed with. This is like fucking,
God.
Podcast brain.
Podcast brain for fucking real. But this is Ted Geoghegan's new movie. He directed We Are Still Here in 2015, and this is his newest film that is basically like, it's a chamber piece. It's a bunch of friends. I think it's 5 friends. Yeah, 5 military veterans from World War II get together at one of their friends' house. It's Larry Fessenden's character's house, to kind of like meet after the war and reminisce and just be with their friends, like be with old friends again. And as they are chatting around this beautiful oak room, talking about the war and kind of like verbally sparring back and forth, they end up having a seance, and then everything kind of goes downhill from the seance. And it is both, it's a really interesting combo of supernatural and real life drama, because there's a lot going on here about like PTSD and post World War II and kind of like responsibilities here of like of trust and of like treating other people. And it's really beautiful. I think it's really well written. I think it's a really interesting examination of friendship and a really good balance of like the spooky to the human drama to the spooky again, and kind of weaving in these horror elements when you kind of are lured into this false sense of security of like, okay, the ghost stuff is over, and then it's like, oh shit, here it comes again. So there's a really interesting kind of like ebb and flow to it that I really enjoy, that I'm excited to see again when it hits Shudder soon, because I think it's definitely like not at all like We Are Still Here. It's not that gory. It's not really like that scary, but it like is like one of those sad horror movies. It's got like a Benson and Moorhead like more sad vibe, I guess, to like emotional connections and kind of that kind of thing, while the horror kind of is the backdrop for this examination of friendship and trauma and PTSD and all that lovely stuff.
Because like you had talked about it out of South by, and then I got to see it at a Panic Fest, and I hadn't seen it when you had talked about it before. So I'm actually really glad that we're talking about it again, because I was blown away by this movie. I think Larry Fessenden pulls out a performance of his lifetime in this and shows why he is such a genre mainstay. But this is basically like grab a whole bunch of character actors in genre. We have Jeremy Holm. We have Ezra Buzzington, he played, I think his name was maybe Goggles, but he was in the Hills Have Eyes remake. We have Larry. We have Anne Ramsey, who was in the Taking of Deborah Logan. So we have like all of these fantastic character actors that are given a meaty script to like really dig into. And what I loved about this film is the way in which it deconstructs the way we look at World War II and the way we look at heroes out of the war who may have done horrible things during the war and are struggling with the consequences of that in a world that has said, we got to move on. We got to, World War II is behind us, but it hasn't. And I think that there's a lot of prescient things in here in terms of the way in which hate and xenophobia and the way in which we sort of heroize that war as being like big thing. And it was a big thing, but like kind of the heroes of it, when they were just flawed people faced with unimaginable horror and imaginable things that they had to do to stop Nazism. And so I think that there's a lot of interesting things in here that it is dissecting in that. And it really, like, I recently reviewed this and it really kind of hit home with me with like, because my grandfather fought in World War II. I think a lot of people's grandparents might have been either directly involved with the war or like a part of that whole culture. And I remember my grandfather, he was on the beaches of Normandy. He probably should have died. He had an indent in his head that as a kid I remember feeling.
Oh, shit.
Where shrapnel hit, and the only reason he lived was his helmet that dented inward and caused an indentation in his skull.
Oh, shit.
So there's like, and I thought about that, and it made me really emotional just thinking about, because he never would talk about the war. And so like, it was always this dichotomy of seeing like war movies sort of hero, like make it into like this big heroic thing. And I'm not discounting it, they were heroes, but you see that, and you see this sort of like commercialization of what happened. I mean, we have Call of Duty, like the Call of Duty games, like this idea of like war is a game. And then I've always had a hard time discussing that or thinking about that in terms of seeing my grandfather, who would get this faraway look in his eye and would not talk about the things that he saw over in World War II. And so I think that this movie kind of interrogates that in an interesting way. Yeah. Yes, Tony Spec Ops. Whew, that game. Yikes.
But it does. It gives it views a sense of like reality and like of what PTSD can look like and what it means to be a hero / like what it means to, and like and it's about them and also about the people who had to live through it too, like the other people who maybe didn't go overseas and weren't in the war, but like the after effects of like that paranoia, as we see with Larry Fessenden's character's wife. And it's just like a really fascinating, complex look at war. And I know that it's inspired a lot by Ted's own dad and just like his.
When you want to have fun and have scratchers to scratch, there's a playful way you can do just that. Scratch with the key or acrylic nail. Scratch with the quill from a porcupine tail. Use a belt buckle from your friend Lamar. Or scratch with your pick while you play guitar. You can scratch in a bunch of different playful ways. Scratchers from the California Lottery. A little play can make your day. Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase, play, or claim.
His own relationship to the military, and it's kind of like that, a love letter to that, but with some horror elements thrown in there. And I think there's a lot of humanity in this, which I think a lot of Ted Geoghegan's movies have had. These had 3, and I mean, there's a lot of humanity in them, and this one is definitely no different.
Yeah, I think like a easy way to sum this movie up is that it's 12 angry men and a ghost. Like it's that kind of feel to it. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It really hit home for me.
I really enjoyed it too. So glad I got to bring it up again. Oops.
Yeah, me too, actually. No, oops is the number of times we've done that just because podcast
sheer
brain.
Amount of things we watch.
Mm-hmm. It happens.
Yeah, but now let's talk about our roller coaster.
Oh no, I have one more.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, Becky with the okay hair.
Oh yeah, Becky with the okay hair. I can't read. What's Becky with the okay hair? I'm doing great today. I'm really doing awesome today.
Listeners, we had a marathon recording day, and it's just we're a little fried. Yeah, so I finally saw Becky.
Oh.
The 2020 Lulu. I always want to say Lululemon. The Lulu Wilson starring Paul Blart starring
Paul Blart.
13-year-old versus white nationalists movie.
Yeah.
About
yeah.
Yeah, Purpurina. Yeah, it is literally a teenager's weekend. The basic synopsis: teenager's weekend at a lake house with her father. She lost her mother to cancer. She has this kind of strained relationship with her father, played by Joel McHale. And he is taking her back to their family cabin. She thinks that he's going to sell it, and she is a petulant 13-year-old that is very upset with the world. And to make matters worse, Joe McHale has brought his new girlfriend that he intends to marry and his girlfriend's son to this home, and she's there. And at the same time, Paul Blart, aka Kevin James, and his motley crew of white nationalists have broken out of jail, and there is something in the house that they want to get, and chaos ensues with Lulu Wilson's character going Home Alone meets like rated R violence on these people that are trying to break into their house and potentially murder everyone. I will throw a little warning up here because a lot of people have problems with it. There is an animal death in this film, so just as a warning to those that might not want to deal with that. But it was a blast. I had a lot of fun with this. I don't think Kevin James is that intimidating.
Sorry, Paul Blart.
He just he's
Blart,
not
Paul
it.
Fart.
He's not scary in this. Like I was like, ooh, because the reason why I watched this is that the sequel is coming out later this month, and I was like, I've never seen this one, so I want to watch this one before I watch the sequel. And we'll talk about you talked about the sequel out of South by as well, but I'm gonna probably bring it up. I'm gonna probably bring it up when the movie is coming out. But yeah, so I watched this one. This one is a lot of fun. Do not think Paul Blart, genuine threat. Yeah, do not find him to be a genuine threat, but I had a blast with this movie. It is over the top violent. Same cinematographer, actually, as Soft and Quiet. Another movie about white nationalists. So, that's interesting. But yeah, I had fun.
Lulu Wilson's a star.
She is. She's
really
fantastic
good. She's
in
a
this.
star. And she's really good in the new one, too. I'm glad you liked it. It's fun. It's like definitely kind of a more like not mindless, but it's fun. It's a fun like not slasher, but like like you said, like Home Alone, horror adjacent, like rare exports without the Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
that's right. She was in Ouija. I forgot that
she was in Ouija.
That.
She was in Haunting of Hill House. Like, she was in one of the Annabelle movies. She was in Sharp Objects. Annabelle Creation.
She's been in everything.
Deliver Us from Evil. Like, she's been making her genre progress. I love it. But yeah.
I know. All right, now let's talk about this roller coaster of disaster. As we have continued our Final Destination foray with Final Destination Trace 3.
Yes. So I gotta know, what did you think about this one, Mary Beth? Because this is, for those that don't know, this is the one that opens with the roller coaster, and then the kind of gimmick with this one is that Mary Elizabeth Winstead is a photographer, and she sees hints of the future in the pictures that she has taken. So I'm curious what you thought about this one.
Tony had fond memories of reading Final Destination 3 fanfic on the IMDb message boards about Ian and Eric, because I was a 12-year-old and I loved Aaron. Aaron, not Eric. Oh, is that what you think about that, Misu?
She has thoughts.
Wow, that's incredible, Tony. What an incredible experience. So, I liked the deaths in this one are like consistently iconic, I think. I mean, if I had complaints about acting in the second one, boy oh boy, in this one, it just feels like they just don't care about the acting. They're like, we don't need you to act. We just need you to stand here while things get thrown at you. And I love how in each movie they keep like, it's no longer death. It's like the first and second one were like connected with clear rivers and about the whole like way of how death is doing things, and now it's photography, and Abraham Lincoln is somehow involved with him being part of it.
I forgot about that until I rewatched it. I was like, oh my god, that and the two towers photo. I'm like,
yeah, I was like, wait, are we just like completely like taking back the lore we had? And like again, like the lore is such a tenuous word for what is going on in the Final Destination movies. And as I saw with Chucky, I love to poke holes and be like, I don't understand the logic of the voodoo. I'm gonna not do that here because it just like isn't. There is no lore here. Like, what the fuck ever. But I mean, loved the roller coaster, love the tanning beds, love the lifting of the weights part. When he's like, you can't kill me, motherfucker, and they're all yelling slurs at each other in the fucking like bathroom, and he's like, ah, fuck you, and then lifts the weight and it just smashes his head. I mean, come on, that's... And then the hardware store death where it feels like, I just love how complicated everything has gotten at this point. Like, everything's such a fake out. Like, and the way that it's like goes on forever and ever, everything falling, and you're like, when the fuck is it gonna happen? And she gets shot with the nails. That was bad. But
it's also Purpurita, yes. First of all, yes, it is a deadly Rube Goldberg machine. And also, yes, this is the one with the tanning bed, which remains one of my favorite moments. Just the way it is shot, particularly overhead, as like the camera is down on them and the tanning beds are next to each other and they're burning, and then it cuts to them being buried side by side in the coffins. Like the tanning beds become the coffins. Is such like a perfect, and yes, gratuitous boobs so much. I don't think the roller coaster is great.
It's like fine, but it's not as like, after getting like the plane crash and like the pile up, I mean, it's terrifying because that is like the most terrifying thing to me, but it definitely didn't have the same impact.
No,
as like
it was just like, as Tony said, just a lot of people falling or flying out. Like, just, it's like splat, splat, splat. Like, there's one really cool thing where the guy gets cut in half and like the bottom half is like still stuck in the car. Like, I love that kind of moments, but it didn't feel as impactful.
It didn't have like visual like spectacle as much as the other two did. It definitely. And then I was annoyed at the fake out at the end, the weird thing at the end where it just like is like, okay, we're gonna go into New York City, and just like, what? I literally I went back. I was like, did I miss something here? Like, what is going on? And no, I didn't miss anything. It just decided to do a time jump randomly.
What I think is funny about this one is that like the opening.
Sorry, do you?
Yeah, I do. So cute. The opening death, the opening like kill sequence is the first 20 some odd minutes of this movie. Like,
it's so long.
It's so long and drawn out, but I think it has to be because the rest of the movie is boom, 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 done. And it almost feels like it has to be padded a bit because like this, I mean, it's not a long movie, I don't believe. 93 minutes and 20 did I write it down? No, I did not. But like 20-ish minutes of that 90-minute runtime is this beginning. And yes, Tony, I'm glad you brought this up because I remember getting the DVD. And the DVD had a special feature where you could like choose your own adventure. And there's types when it would pause and you would like pick an action and it would go down this other route. And it didn't really change a whole lot. There's just like a little bit of things like changed on it. But like the first choice that you can make is to have them not actually get on the roller coaster, and when you do that, the movie's over. It ends.
Hell yeah!
It's so funny, right. But cool. So that I think is really kind of fun. The ending, I was like, oh, I forgot about this ending. Like, but I have to say that was more exciting to me than the opening of this movie with the roller coaster. It's just the roller coaster doesn't do it for me at all.
It definitely. I mean, like it's definitely intrusive thought territory for me when I'm like, that is my worst fear. But again, like, it's just like not exactly, again, like I said, like not as like much of a spectacle. I did like how they played the Roller Coaster of Love song, which obviously has which very obviously, and this one has like the scream, like that urban legend scream in the background. And I love how this franchise uses musical cues and like such obvious music. Like this franchise, I think what I like about it is like, even when things are like laughably bad, they are still very playful with like how they use music, and it's not a horror comedy, but it definitely pokes fun at things and like kind of understands what it is, and it's a little bit silly in those regards, and I respect that though.
Yeah, I do think Because like I would say that the first one is a horror slasher. The second one is a dark comedy. I find the second one to be very funny in a very dark
Yeah,
comedic way.
that one is pretty
This
funny.
one is leaning into splatstick a whole lot more. Like all the deaths, like the amount of times that Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character gets splatted in the face with blood in this is just, it happens almost every single kill, I'm pretty sure.
Incredible. And like she screams. She's always screaming.
Mm-hmm. It's
Wait,
so splatstick.
Tony said, did you know how they killed off the two survivors in 2? They got sucked into a wood chipper.
What?
What?
I did not even know that. That's hilarious.
Oh. At least they made it a little bit more obvious in this one how everyone, well, I guess I'll see when I watch the next one, but...
Oh my god, the next one.
Oh god, okay. Oh god. So I didn't think this one was that bad. I mean, it definitely wasn't, like, amazing.
It's fun.
But... Oh boy. All right.
Well, also, this one has the returning director from the first one, James Wong, coming back.
That's true.
To direct this one. And I don't know, I think he's having just fun with it. And I think...
Yeah.
I definitely feel it's a little slight compared to the first two, because I think the first two are just iconic. This one, I feel, is a little slight. We'll talk about the fourth one next week, which is... And then as Kate says, 5 is really good.
3D.
Yeah.
Damn.
I have a story about that.
Oh, I'm very excited.
We'll be talking about that for sure next week.
Hell yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, we're continuing the Final Destination train next week with, as we said, The Final Destination. Very glad I'm finally watching these movies. I feel so in the know now. They're definitely fun. They're like cheesy, but they're fun. And I love that they know exactly what they are. At least so far. They all seem to know exactly what they are. And I respect that. And the deaths are really cool. I am so impressed every time. I'm like, all right. And I do love the you think this is how the death is going to happen? Psych! And every time. It doesn't get boring because it's so weird every single time. So
I think that is like the thing that I love the most. Well, obviously, I mean, that's like the big gimmick of it, right? But it's the thing I do love the most is it's pulling again from the slasher genre, but it's kind of like making you a detective of trying to figure out how it's going to happen, and just trying to figure out the way that all these things are going to somehow convalesce with someone's head getting smashed by weights, or an engine going through the back of the head of some dude. Like, just it's fun in a ghoulish sort of way. I will say the one thing that when I first saw this, I was like, ooh, this would have been really cool, is the guy in the what is his name? The goth guy, Ian.
Oh, Ian.
The way there's like this moment where I was like, ooh, what would happen if one of the survivors decided to start going on a killing spree and try to kill everyone else to like avoid his death? And that almost happens. That's hinted at a little bit in here, but they never really dig into it too much, because he just shows up at the very end and then gets splatted. But like, I was like, that would be kind of interesting, of like seeing a twist on it where like the guy is like, I gotta kill these people so that I can survive, and add sort of like another wrinkle to it. And this movie kind of brings it up and then doesn't really do anything with it, unfortunately. But I always thought that would be kind of fun.
Yeah. But then, who are we talking to on Monday?
Okay. We are talking with the multi-hyphenate Sophia Ajram. He's the editor of Bury Your Gays, an anthology of tragic queer horror that is currently taking submissions until the end of May. They brought with them Rose Red, the 4-hour Stephen King miniseries that is a very obvious remake of The Haunting of Hill House. And this movie was not for me, y'all, but
it's a good conversation.
It is a good conversation.
That's for sure.
Boy, I do not recommend watching all 4 hours of that movie in one go, because that was a lot. But it was a good conversation. It was a fun conversation. We talk about houses that are bigger on the inside than they should be. We talk about a whole lot of that kind of creepy, fun stuff. And it was a good episode, just about a movie that I did not like. Yes, TARDIS houses, Kate. Yes.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation for sure. But then, so listeners, you've heard from us. We want to hear from you. Did you watch a film or read a book that we talked about this week and have thoughts? Do you have suggestions for things we should be talking about? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. It has been a moment since we've had a review. We would love a new review if possible. Support us through Patreon. We have a new, as we said at the top of the show, a new Fresh Wounds episode out there for our listeners. And if you haven't listened to our episode about Soft and Quiet, the movie is now streaming on Netflix if you want to ruin your afternoon. But we have a really good conversation about it, and it's out there for free. So you can go watch that if you want to, or just listen to us, because it's a rough one.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you everybody for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? Somebody please think of the children!
When you wanna have fun and have scratchers to scratch, there's a playful way you can do just that. Scratch with the key or acrylic nail. Scratch with the quill from a porcupine tail. Use a belt buckle from your friend Lamar. Or scratch with your pick while you play guitar. You can scratch in a bunch of different playful ways. Scratchers from the California Lottery. A little play can make your day. Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase, play, or claim.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.